He is dropped off at an unfamiliar place, surrounded by unfamiliar smells, and for a while he paces, whines, presses his nose against the door. Then a car pulls up outside, and before the door even opens, before a single word is spoken, his entire body changes. Ears lift, tail rises. Something in him already knows. If you have ever watched your dog recognize your presence before he could possibly have seen or heard you clearly, you have witnessed something psychologists spent decades trying to prove actually exists in animals at all, a bond specific enough, deep enough to be called real attachment. Most people assume their dog's devotion comes down to something fairly simple. You feed him, you walk him, you are the source of comfort and resources, so naturally he sticks close. Under this view, a dog's loyalty is transactional, built on convenience rather than anything psychologically deep, the same reason he might warm up to anyone who reliably fills his bowl. It is not an unreasonable assumption. It fits what we know about how animals learn to associate people with rewards. But here is the surprising part. When researchers actually tested whether dogs bond with whoever provides resources or whether something far more specific is happening, the results did not support the simple explanation at all. Neuroscientist Gregory Burns ran a series of experiments training dogs to lie still inside functional MRI scanners, fully awake so researchers could watch their brains respond in real time to different scents. When dogs were presented with the scent of their own owner, alongside the scent of a familiar dog, an unfamiliar human, and an unfamiliar dog, only one scent reliably activated the caudate nucleus, the brain region most associated with anticipation of reward. Not the smell of food, not the smell of another dog, the specific scent of one particular person. This was not a generic response to anyone kind or familiar. It was a response reserved, in a functioning mammalian brain, for one individual. You have probably felt the pull of this yourself without having language for it, the particular way your dog greets you differently than he greets anyone else in the house, even people who feed him just as often. But that difference raises a harder question than it first appears to answer. If attachment is not simply about resources, what is it actually built from? Researcher Joseph Topal adapted a classic method originally designed to study infant bonding, called the strange situation, and applied it directly to dogs and their owners. In the experiment, a dog is placed in an unfamiliar room. A stranger enters, the owner leaves briefly, and researchers observe how the dog behaves during separation and reunion. What Topal discovered mirrored something long assumed unique to human infants. Dogs use their owner as what psychologists call a secure base, exploring a new environment more confidently when the owner was present, becoming visibly distressed at separation in a way that did not happen with a stranger, and settling specifically at reunion with the owner rather than simply calming down once any person returned. The behavior was not generalized comfort-seeking. It was attachment aimed at one individual. This is where the story deepens, because knowing dogs form specific attachment is only the beginning. The real question is what that attachment actually does inside a dog's body, moment to moment, when he is simply near you. Physiologists studying human and canine interaction have measured something remarkable happening beneath the surface of an ordinary moment of affection. In a study led by researcher Linda Handlin, both dogs and their owners showed measurable changes in oxytocin and cortisol during 3 minutes of petting and quiet interaction, oxytocin rising, cortisol, the primary stress hormone, dropping, in both species simultaneously. This was not a one-directional effect, where the dog simply calmed down because petting feels nice. It was a shared physiological event, two nervous systems synchronizing in real time, each one responding to the other's presence as if some part of their biology had been built specifically to regulate together. Translate this into what it actually means for the dog curled against your leg tonight. He is not simply enjoying a pleasant sensation. His stress hormones are dropping because his body has learned through repeated experience that proximity to you specifically is safe enough to stand down the alarm system every mammal carries. That is not convenience. That is a nervous system that has organized itself at a biological level around your presence. But there is something even more telling than physiology, something that shows up specifically in moments of uncertainty, and this is where deep attachment reveals itself most clearly. Researchers studying a behavior called social referencing found that dogs, when confronted with something new and slightly unsettling, an unfamiliar object, a strange sound, an ambiguous situation, do not simply react on instinct. They look at their owner's face first. In studies led by researcher Sarah Marshall-Piscini and colleagues, dogs facing an unfamiliar object behaved differently depending on whether their owner displayed a calm, positive expression or a fearful, negative one, adjusting their own willingness to approach based entirely on what they read in a human face. This is a sophisticated social skill, one previously believed to require the kind of cognitive framework only human infants possessed, checking a trusted figure's emotional signal before deciding how to interpret the world. This reframes something almost every owner has witnessed without recognizing its significance. The dog who glances back at you before approaching a stranger, who hesitates at a strange noise until reading your reaction, who seems to calibrate his entire emotional response to whatever your face is telling him in that instant. He is not simply reacting to the world. He is reading you as a source of information about whether the world is currently safe, which means somewhere in his mind, your emotional state functions as a filter through which he experiences his own environment. This is the truth the title of this video has been building toward. Deep canine attachment is not a story about loyalty earned through feeding schedules or convenience. It is a specific, individualized bond, measurable in brain activity, synchronized in hormones, and expressed through a level of social awareness that treats you as the reference point for how safe the entire world feels in any given moment. There is an emotional weight to this that deserves to sit for a moment before moving forward, because it changes what ordinary moments actually mean. Every time your dog checks your face during something unfamiliar, he is not simply curious about your reaction. He is asking, without words, whether he can trust what is happening around him, and trusting your answer more than his own instincts in that moment. Few relationships, in any species, involve that degree of calibrated dependence on another individual's emotional state. This also explains a pattern many owners have quietly noticed without understanding why it happens so consistently. The dog who becomes subtly more anxious during periods when his owner is stressed, even without any change in routine, tone of voice, or direct interaction. Because attachment runs in both directions physiologically. A dog closely bonded to his owner is not simply picking up on obvious cues like raised voices or slammed doors. He may be responding to smaller shifts in his owner's baseline stress state, the kind that show up in scent, posture, and breathing long before they show up in behavior, precisely because his own nervous system has learned to track yours as closely as his own. None of this means a dog's attachment style is fixed, or that every dog experiences this bond identically. Some dogs, shaped by early experience or inconsistent caregiving, form more anxious versions of this same attachment, seeking proximity constantly, struggling more with separation, less able to settle even when reunited. Others form steadier, more secure versions, confident enough in the relationship to explore independently while still checking back periodically. But in both cases, the underlying architecture is the same. A nervous system organized around one particular person, not resources in general, not comfort in the abstract, but a specific individual whose face, scent, and presence carry a weight nothing else in the environment replicates. What makes this discovery so quietly moving is what it reveals about what your dog is actually doing every single day in ways too subtle to notice unless you know to look for them. The glance toward your face in an unfamiliar moment, the specific scent recognition lighting up his brain before he has even seen you, the stress hormones dropping the instant he settles beside you rather than beside anyone else in the house. None of this is performance. None of it is trained. It is a bond built the same way human attachment is built, through repeated experience, physical closeness, and a nervous system that gradually decided you, specifically, were worth organizing itself around. So the next time your dog looks up at your face before deciding how to react to something new, or presses himself against you and lets out that long, settling exhale, you will know exactly what you are witnessing, not habit, not convenience. A relationship your dog's brain and body have been quietly building since the day he decided, in whatever way dogs decide these things, that you were the one worth attaching to. If this changed the way you think about your own dog's devotion, tell me in the comments about a moment when you noticed him checking your reaction before his own, because I want to know how many of you are recognizing this pattern for the first time right now. If this gave you a deeper understanding of what real attachment looks like in a dog, subscribe, because there is a lot more of this kind of story still to come. and hit like so more owners who have never had the science behind this moment can finally see it too.